Welcome everybody to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the show where we get together every month and we talk about what movies we've seen, what we recommend, and what to avoid. What separates us from the other 100,000 movie-related shows on the internet is that we're high school friends, and we'd be discussing movies even if no one was listening. I'm Nick Moffat. I'm here in Marysville, Washington. We've got Derek Deal.
Yo.
He's in Everett, and we've got the Bowlby brothers, Sean and Brandon, together at last in Seattle.
How's it going?
Wow, look at that. They're sitting right next to each other.
Hey.
This is something special, you know? And you know what? This episode actually is kind of something special in and of itself, just because, it's mid-December. Just to pull back the curtain, it's mid-December when we're recording this. Hopefully we'll get this out around Christmas time. We just, December is a big, packed month. There was so many movies coming out that we
All of a sudden, finally.
Yeah, finally. And so we just decided that we would pick 4 movies and just record it mid-December because there's a few more movies coming out around Christmas. So we did 4 movies early December. We'll do 4 movies end of December. And just, we just figured, what the heck? We're here talking about movies we like, and let's just talk about the movies we like. And with that, I think we should just jump right in. Guys, you all feeling good today? You feeling excited about all the stuff that we got to talk about?
Yes.
Feeling great.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, the first thing we got to go over is our film club segment. The segment where every month we take turns. One of us picks a movie and then forces the rest of us to watch the movie. And we take turns every month. Sean, you had the pick for this month. Do you want to set up your movie that you forced us to watch?
Yeah. I forced you guys to watch the movie Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. The Hayao Miyazaki film. The IMDb summary is warrior and pacifist Princess Nausicaä desperately struggles to prevent 2 warring nations from destroying themselves and their dying planet.
Okay.
Epic. Yeah, it's a big idea, big concept movie. I feel like it's a somewhat overlooked Hayao Miyazaki movie. Everyone's seen Hayao Miyazaki. Everyone loves Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli movies. But this was his first feature film based on a graphic novel series. And it is my 3rd favorite Miyazaki movie. But I always say that I think if he had made it later in his career, it could have been his best film because there's so many big ideas and such great characters and such an interesting world. And really the only thing that is, bad thing that you could say about it, not that there's anything bad you could say about it, is just that he wasn't as good of a director on his first movie as he was later on. And, he kind of grew into bigger budget films. So
was this literally his first movie?
Yeah, first feature film.
I didn't know that.
Surprised me.
I had no idea.
The date. This is a 1984 film, and I didn't see that till after I finished it. I was placing it like early 90s, but then when I saw 84, I was really surprised.
That kind of recontextualizes it a little bit for me, actually. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think just in the movie, he displays such an incredible knack for storytelling that you get to see all throughout his career. Such efficient and interesting world building and character development and ideas and themes and all kinds of stuff is really on display in this movie. That he just, he kind of grows into later on in his career. I think like the opening sequence of this movie is so good and demonstrates all those things so well. And because there's so much interesting world building built so efficiently in that first sequence where Nausicaa's like going through the forest.
She's just exploring on her own.
Yeah, exploring on her own, and it's just her and her thoughts and the way she's interacting with the world around her, and the way she talks about her people and the way she just like is able to lay down and experience her this deadly forest around her.
It's kind of cool how she follows the guy she saves into the world, like into the main village that you see after she like saves his life.
And I just like that from that opening scene. It establishes such a great cinematic experience that he takes you on. And he construct such an interesting story around it. And the movie just takes you on such a fun journey, and it takes you to so many unexpected places. And I think Nausicaä is such an interesting character and such a complex character, and we don't get enough of that kind of character. You know, she's such a strong person. Both physically, it shows she's a really great fighter, and she's extremely capable and thoughtful and clever. Yet all of the struggle throughout the movie is her doing the right thing, and it's about her fighting for people to stop fighting, I guess.
So that's interesting. Like, one thing about Nausicaä that I noticed is she's like almost a perfect person throughout this entire film from beginning to end.
Right, like
she knows every right decision, and she never faults, and it's pretty cool. Like, it's great that she's like such a strong character in every way, but I was wanting towards the end for her to like do something wrong at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I kept thinking, I was just thinking about like how with Star Wars: The Force Awakens, how it was like a big deal that Rey had all these powers and everyone called her Mary Sue and stuff, and it was like, watching this, it's like I didn't even really think about that until like you just mentioned it, where like, yeah, she is kind of perfect, but like I kind of loved that about her. Like, for me at least, it took me a little bit to like actually get into this movie, because I felt like most of the characters were kind of like soft in a lot of ways, but then like, Sean, I'll let you continue, but like I did get really into this movie. I loved how it all came together at the end and stuff, and her just wanting to do the right thing. Like, there's that scene early on where I think she kills someone for the first time, and like the blood drips down her sword, and she sees it drop, and it's like everything changes at that point. Like, she's an amazing fighter, but at that moment she's like, I don't want to kill, which is an extremely interesting character choice.
Yeah. And that is also like a character that he revisits, I think, in Princess Mononoke with, that traveling warrior character, the main character from Princess Mononoke. He's kind of a similar thing. They say early on in the movie, my goal is to go see the world unclouded by hate. And like, that's his whole thing, is he's like playing both sides and understanding of both sides. And, that's kind of Nausicaa's thing. Like, she's the what is it? It's the Pedgites and I forget the name of the other people, who are at war, but she's just kind of going back and forth between the two sides, and
she's basically like an eye for an eye to both of them.
Well, it's like also just like the senselessness of war. It's like these two tribes, these two cities are just like fighting, and they both think that they're in the right, and they both think the other side is just like ruthless, and it's like you're both so dumb, you're both like missing the point of the natural order of things, and gosh, like
and like the idea that there's like this war between these two people, but above all of that, there's this fungal jungle fungus that is going to destroy the world,
and insects that are just bloodthirsty.
And like, I love all those ideas. There's so many great, interesting, complex themes throughout this movie. And like, going back to Nausicaä herself, I love how much her people love her, but the movie goes out of their way to show why they love her. From very early on, like when she first visits the village, you can see that love that she has for her people and they have for her. And then like a scene later on when they're like flying through the jungle, there's some of the villagers in one of the planes, and then she's in a different plane, and she's trying to get them to listen to her, and they're like kind of freaking out and talking over each other. And so all she does, she just very calmly stands up flying the plane with her feet and just takes off her mask. And just like that moment, there's like a silence after she takes off her mask, and it just, she demands and commands their respect and their demands them to listen to her just through calmness. And after that, she says what she needs to say, gets her point across, and then and like those little moments, it's so fucking good how they portray her character. And like that goes all the way back to what I was saying earlier, that opening scene with the I forget what it was, the fire squirrel, or no, a squirrel, fox squirrel or something, that jumps on her shoulder, and the fox squirrel is like scared and angry and growling at her, and she holds up her hand to it and it bites her finger, and she just calmly lets it sit there for a second, and just lets it be afraid and lets it understand that she's not going to hurt it. And like that scene is so beautiful, and it like chokes me up every time I see it. And it's such great, it's doing so many things. It shows so much about her character and the way she sees the world, but also it's about the themes of the whole movie, like just in that little moment.
There's a handful of scenes in the movie where like she does the peaceful thing instead of doing the like violent thing, and she shows compassion instead of antagonistic behavior. And each time like the thing like opens up to her and accepts her, and she accepts it. Yeah. And it's like, you can't help but I couldn't help but think like, this is like, that could be the natural order of things if humans didn't have the instinct to like fight each other and defend themselves and be stubborn. Like if we could just like be compassionate and open ourselves up to the experience of others or of other things, then like maybe things would go smoother. We would be happier, and it's just accepting. And
especially like with how much her and her village was wronged in this movie over and over again, and yet they don't. And they don't want revenge. Because she understands that revenge isn't going to end anything. It's just going to continue more bloodshed, and
So Derek,
you mentioned it earlier, the like epicness of the movie, and I think that's one of my favorite parts, how much like history there is and the scale that they really bring with all these different kingdoms and factions and the whole world as a whole, and traveling between these places. And there's even like the ancient history of those giant beings. And I think the egg was maybe a little underdeveloped because this movie was so grand and big. It didn't have time to really give us too much of that, but even that was just like more layers and richness to the history of this planet. And all that was just like you said, if this wasn't his first movie, I think it could possibly have been his best movie if those were able to be even more well done than they already were.
I get that.
Yeah.
Derek, what about you? What's your experience with Miyazaki and this movie? I have the hardest time saying Nausicaä for whatever reason. Like saying and spelling Nausicaä is one of the hardest things for me. So Nausicaä, right? Did I say it right, Sean? Nausicaä?
Yep, I think so.
Okay,
yep.
So
I think this is my third Miyazaki movie. At this rate, I'm seeing one every like 10 years. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I don't know. I don't have any strong opinions about it. I thought it was pretty good. I really like, I'm guessing, I don't know if his whole style is always like this, but I love like this era of like anime and like the sounds, like the, like their, I don't know what you call it, like their Foley work, like laser shots and stuff like that. Like this and like Akira are the two that just come to mind from the 80s. But I just really like the aesthetics of that.
How about that soundtrack, guys?
Yeah.
But even just the like super 80s songs too.
Phoenix really liked it. He watched
Phoenix
like,
watched it.
he watched the whole movie.
Oh, fun!
Nice,
cool.
He did get scared at a couple parts.
On that point, Derek, I wanted to talk a little bit about like some of the visual designs of the movie, and like one thing that Miyazaki is, has in almost all of his movies is flying devices and really interestingly designed ships and airplanes and
is cyberpunk the right word for this? It was like futuristic, like maybe. Torn down world where they were like still had windmills, but they also had this like energy where they could fly.
There was a lot of stuff. There's like these futuristic giant flying ships that kind of had a very industrial, like mid-century feel to them, like World War II. Aesthetic. And then like they had armor, like full plate armor head to toe. And then they had like swords and stuff. And then they had tanks, and windmills. And so it's like this interesting like mixed mashup of a lot of different time periods. And you could almost maybe say that that's because it's set way in the future in a post-apocalyptic kind of world where, I don't know, they're piecing together different technologies that work and for what they need them to. But yeah, like the way that Nausicaä's little glider, small little single-person jet thing flies, it's just like, you know, it fits her character so well. And then the Talmekians, that's the city, one of the cities that's at war. The Talmekians have the big iron giant flying ships, and then the Pedgites have the smaller, like, I don't know, almost bronze looking, I don't know how I can't really describe them, but they have their own look of flying ship. And just love all the designs of everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail.
Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, it was a great movie, Sean. I mean, Miyazaki is quite something. I think I've only seen 3 or 4 of his movies as well, and for me, I feel like, I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like I always have a hard time like getting into them initially, but then by the time they're over, I'm like pretty much in love. So I think like if I watch this movie again, I think I'll like it more the second time. Just sometimes I have a hard time jumping into the world because he drops you right into this very much established world, and sometimes I have a hard time with that with animated movies like this. And but it was pretty great. And Derek, that's promising to me, at least, that Phoenix liked it. It makes me, because Lane loves My Name is Totoro, and I feel like I should try another Miyazaki movie with her. And I think Kiki's Delivery Service is the one that everyone says is like another very kid friendly one. And
the one thing is, there are some moments in here that were kind of scary for him, but
it's kind of violent too. But cool. Well, I think we should move on to the bulk of our show, where we have 4 2020 movies to talk about. We have a lot to go over, so I'm pretty excited to get going on 2020 movies. So I think we should just jump right into that. I just want to say that all of these are available for any listener right now. So these next 4 movies are available. So, Derek, first movie of the month. What's your pick?
Tenet, Christopher Nolan's newest movie. The letterbox synopsis of it is: armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, the protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. That is an interesting synopsis.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I knew nothing about this movie going in, honestly. I successfully avoided the plot completely.
Yeah,
and that didn't help at all.
I saw the
though.
trailers, but I never saw any spoilers or anything. Didn't hear anything about, just kind of rumblings of people's opinions and stuff like that. But I was pretty. And I had theories back when the trailers were coming out, but it's been so long, like, since this movie was supposed to be out and like we were supposed to be able to see it, that like I kind of just kind of fell off in the background. And thank God they put it out on video, because I don't know if I'd be able to see it otherwise. And I'm still hoping it goes back to theaters when everything's normal. I think this is like the one thing that Christopher Nolan always delivers on is like he makes movies for the big screen, like almost exclusively. Like
they're like events.
Yeah, and it's like, God, like it's just they're so big, and like he goes so big with his set pieces and stuff. It's like almost a disservice to not watch it on a big screen, nice and loud and stuff. But given our current situation, I did pick up the Blu-ray, which has like the IMAX shots in it, and it was definitely worth it. They're gorgeous when those shots come up. You can, like the picture quality, I feel like gets better too with those shots. Like it got so crystal clear and like, yeah, it was beautiful. Anyways, I really, really liked the movie. It's probably one of his most like, nitpickable. It's kind of a mess plot wise. But at the same time, it felt very clear to me that like he had this like sequence of all these set pieces, and pretty much anytime someone's talking, they're just preparing for the next set piece. It's all kind of like there's a lot of, all of the plot stuff seemed to be just setting up what's about the next like incredible set piece that's about to blow your mind. And so all the crap it's getting for like its poor storytelling and stuff like that, like I don't know, to me that feels like that's completely besides the point when it comes to like how big he went with these set pieces, because these are like, I think these are some of his best action scenes he's ever done. And he's really got like, when I'm thinking of like some of my favorite action movies the last like decade or so, like Mission Impossible Fallout and Fury Road and stuff, I feel like this, and those are like incredible, well-known action directors, and Christopher Nolan is that as well, but I don't know how recognized he is specifically for his action. Like, I don't know. Like,
there's a few movies, like certainly Inception.
Yeah, Inception has like a scene or two that are like really memorable for the action, but a lot of it's just like the trippy visuals and like the heist mechanics of it. But this movie specifically, like almost every single action scene is like perfectly executed to like maximum intensity, and like it's really, really awesome.
Yeah. Second that.
Yeah, I'll bring up there really is, the plot is so freaking confusing, and like I can't honestly tell you exactly, like I don't fully understand what the villain's even trying to do, besides just like end the world. But they told me that that's what he's trying to do, but I didn't really I still don't get like how or what or what
there's
that
like
is.
these algorithms that
they're like this.
do
It's an
something.
algorithm, but it's like in physical form. It's like, what? I don't know what that means. Like,
Spread
you
out
can
over
show
9
it to me. I still
locations.
don't understand like what is so dangerous about that or whatever. But the main character's name is protagonist. Like, there's no.
To clarify, his name isn't protagonist.
Well, that's
but he's
the only name that's
he's
given
he's
to him.
he's an unnamed. I would say he's an unnamed
like agent.
protagonist.
Yeah.
I mean, shout out.
It says
real
he
quick.
plays
unnamed throughout the
protagonist.
movie.
He
Yes.
plays the protagonist.
Well, yeah, but just like in like Fight Club.
I was talking to Cal about this, who's been a guest on the show, and me and him think that this is like a James Bond movie in a lot of ways. Like, this is Christopher Nolan kind of making a James Bond movie or an anti-James Bond movie. Like, it's like there are times in the movie where he's like he's kind of like ripping through the James Bond tropes while also making a like over the top, just action piece, set piece James Bond type movie. And like the thing with James Bond is that his name is super famous. He's Bond, James Bond. And this movie is like the protagonist has no name. Same thing with like James Bond has like, he's got his martini, shake not stirred. And this guy doesn't drink on the job. It's like, I think there are a handful of things like that where they're direct nods to like, this is like James Bond, but also it's not James Bond.
Yeah, I totally get that feeling from it too, and it's like he's never really been one for vague like plots like this. Usually he cares a lot about his plot and like the story that's happening. But this movie very much doesn't seem too interested in that. Like, it's very much like, no, like, watch this. Look at this cool thing we're about to do. Like, yeah, whatever, that's happening, but like, this is so freaking cool. Watch what we're going to do here. And that totally worked for me. Like,
yeah, I was super excited for this movie. I was so ready for a big actiony blockbustery. I was so excited to see $200 million up on a screen, and
definitely see it.
And I had kind of heard a lot of the complaints about the movie before watching it, but I was like, I don't care. I just want an experience, a fucking movie experience again. And so I sat down and me and Brandon watched the movie last night. We watched Nick's Blu-ray. It's cool that we all saw it on Blu-ray. I actually had a good time watching it. It was very confusing, but somehow in a way that I was always interested to find out more, even though I don't know if the movie ever really puts things together. I was always like, all right, well, now what does that mean? What's going to happen next? So I actually had quite a bit of fun with it. However, after the movie, when you get a second to think about it, it does start falling apart. And me and Brandon actually probably spent a couple hours talking about
trying to figure it out,
trying to piece some things together, trying to figure out what happened and what was going on, who was doing what, and like what actually was happening in those action scenes. And like,
it's pretty good because different people get different things about it, and so talking about it after, you like fill in gaps that you miss, like that everyone misses. So I definitely learned a lot with me, Sean, and Kelly talking about it after.
Yeah.
And so like, I guess walking away from it, it was really like, I don't know. I don't think it makes sense, but maybe it's genius.
See, my thing with the movie is that, like, I really enjoyed it, by the way. And I think that, like, having lower expectations might have helped me with this a little bit, just because, like, it came out so long ago. A bunch of people on Twitter saw it already and talked about it. Like, the discussion has already been had, and now, like, it's it's out again. Now people are kind of talking about it again, and, a lot of people are dismissing it. And I don't think it's, like, I'm not going to dismiss it because, I turned it on and I turned all the lights down, and man, I had a blast just watching this movie. I was like, yeah, this is a freaking movie, and I thought the second half was a lot better than the first half, and I loved how I thought it all came together in a really cool way. But I also think like it was way more complicated than it needed to be. My thing is like, what you were saying about, you give the movie a little bit of thought and then you're like, what the heck? It's kind of falling apart. And I felt that way about Interstellar, and I feel like maybe a few other Christopher Nolan movies, but I feel like Nolan's tendencies are to be like, I am making a smart movie for everyone, and I need to show you how smart it is. And it's all, I feel like this movie was like, exemplified that, where like it didn't need to be this complicated. It didn't need to feel so complicated, but Nolan needed to like, really make a complicated movie. And I think part of the reason why it felt so complicated was just because the dialogue was so terrible. You had these characters that were like explaining what was happening to each other, but like scene to scene, I couldn't tell what was happening. And it was like, wait, why is this guy talking to that guy? What's going on? And like, I think it does make sense. I do think like there is a thread line through why he's going from person to person, but I feel like the dialogue is so unnecessarily complicated that it really confuses you, and for no real reason other than to try to make it more complicated than it is.
Yeah. I mean, just to real quick go through all that, it's like he there's that opening scene and so there's the opening sequence. He wakes up and a guy tells him to go to a windmill. From the windmill, he goes and he talks to Fleur Delacour that Kelly pointed out.
I mean, Sean, I don't think we have time to like go through the whole like beat to
but
beat
then like
plot of the movie,
all right,
but.
that's a good point. But yeah, it is literally like from person to person, and each person gets like a 5-minute scene, and like one right after the other. It's
pretty
and it's
relentless
just like,
for the first half of that
why
one.
is he, this
Sorry, I
all
just got that
probably
Harry
could have
Potter
been set up by
reference.
one knowledgeable person in the movie, and yeah, it's so hard to follow that and why he's and then it like jumps right into that like first heist sequence, and you're just like kind of completely lost at that point how he got there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree a lot with you, Nick, with when you actually like, we could handle the time travel like pretty easily, and a machine that sends you back and forth in time simultaneously. Like they could explain that pretty quickly, and they kind of did at one point. And then there's just this like relentless amount of characters talking and explaining and trying to make like the physics sound so much more difficult than it is, and you just really get bogged down and lost. And I think you were being a little generous, Derek, at the beginning, like talking about how it's really about the set pieces. Like maybe it was trying to be, but if it was, they really got lost in so much extra dialogue to get to those set pieces that didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And and I think we could have still gotten it. Like once it actually starts happening, you see it happening, like I would have been right there with it. I think one thing that was cool is like right at the very beginning with the IMAX in the Opera House, I remember just being like, God, Nolan like knows how to move the camera, like in just the most epic feeling way. And it reminded me so much of like the Dark Knight intro, those people like ziplining down,
yeah,
like
definitely.
this IMAX camera is just flying through these corridors. And I got hyped at a lot of points through this movie, for sure. And Nick, you mentioned the score to me right as you were handing me the Blu-ray. The score is
So
fucking
good.
tremendously
Like
good.
playing
I
in
think
my
it might
head
be my
right
favorite Nolan score, honestly. Like
Yeah.
it blew me away. Me and Shannon talked about it afterward. We're like, we kept getting confused, trying to follow it from plot point to plot point. And I was like pretty stoned, so I wasn't really too worried about following it. I was just like, yeah, okay. I mean, maybe I just don't get what's happening, but it's cool that they're all talking to each other. But like, I thought like every time that I started to get lost or Shannon started to get lost, the music would come back in. And then you'd be like, oh, hell yeah, here we go. And it was just so exciting.
Yeah.
I think the movie can't get a pass, though, on its sound mixing. And people have talked about this, but like I immediately was noticing it. The like differences in the levels of sound and
like
also
that's a
like how bad the
Nolan
dialogue
thing.
is. I literally would like drone out what they were saying because I couldn't hear
It's
it.
a consistent
and
issue
I started
of
to
all
not
his
want to hear
movies.
it.
It's really weird that
Yeah.
he does that.
It's
Yeah,
rough
every
and distracting
movie-
as fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
People complain about, and every movie he keeps doing it.
Yeah, I think he's doubling down on it just because it's pissing people off.
What is he
Yeah, he's
doing?
just being
He just
stubborn
wants
at
the
this
music.
doubling down.
I don't know.
don't
I,
think-
honestly, I feel like I have pretty bad hearing. I don't really have that big of a problem with it.
I mean,
But
I watch
just-
a lot of movies with subtitles, so I just turned them on. But yeah, it's like you
Yeah,
can't
I
do
should
that
have
in the
done that.
theater. Like you can't have subtitles on the theater. And also, it's like the dialogue is already bad and confusing, and then to make it like so that you can't hear it, like
What did he say?
what? Like what are you trying to do, Nolan? Like, do you not want us to understand? Maybe he doesn't want us.
Honestly-
To, like again, I think he wants us to think that it's more complicated than it is. Like this is my whole theory about Nolan is that
I
he
kind of
just
I kind of saw it as like I double down on like the set piece thing. Like I kind of think that he had this concept that he wanted to do, and it was like these backward scenes, and like the inversion stuff. And I feel like all of the scenes in between are just him kind of being like, yeah, and then this is, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then like that scene in like Community where Troy just
then?
keeps saying, and then off it. It's like he's just kind of geeking out about his own scenes that are about to happen, but he's like trying to set you up because he's like, he thinks that there's so much to him. But like really
every
the
scene
action
of
is so well
exposition,
done.
like you're saying, Derek, is set in the most like exotic, unique
Yeah.
location
Yeah.
for the like 30 seconds,
Yeah.
just to keep it moving.
Well, and like,
Yeah.
but I think the action is done so well. Like most of that story stuff is told in the action. Like they really this movie really doesn't, it's like, it's kind of a dumb movie. There's not like that much to it. It's just understanding the sequence is really the only thing that's confusing. And I think, but really, like, most of the stuff, like when the movie ended, and I will say, like, Phoenix was like being loud and stuff, so, on top of like the weird audio stuff. So there was a lot of like dialogue I missed. But like when the movie got over, I was just thinking how little I heard anybody talk. I'm sure I get like everyone's saying there's a lot of dialogue and it's all nonsense, but I think I still got everything. And so I think that proves that he really just doesn't need. It's just he's so good at action
maybe that
he
proves
told
that
the story without the dialogue.
Maybe it proves that like all those 5 different people that he talked to, he didn't like. He could have just jumped right into that opening heist scene, because all that information that you get,
Again,
really
I think,
isn't that important. Like
again, I think it was supposed to be like a James Bond movie, though. Like, to me, this was like Nolan trying to do a James Bond movie where like the action was more important than anything else that was happening, and he just you got to have something in between. You got to have a guy, a spy. He's going from person to person. He's following a lead, and he's just going from this place to this place. And I don't think the stuff in between really was that important. But like, again, you got to have that in there because he's got to be like following something.
I mean, like in a James Bond movie, it's like, typically you would have more interesting, fun banter back and forth, and depending on the Bond. I mean, then,
I thought the characters were really. I mean, I don't think the characters are very complicated, but I mean, I had a lot of fun with them though. Like I could watch John David Washington. That's his name, right? Yeah, just hanging out all day, and Robert Pattinson was so good too. Like
they're
was
both
just
great.
Fun.
There's just really like. There's just nothing there. Like, they're great to watch for sure. Like, I don't get tired of them.
But like,
they don't bother me.
The problem is that what they're talking about is pretty uninteresting, and like, it's just like all this back and forth, and like you can take what you need out of that conversation and bring it to the next scene. But what they're saying and like how they're saying it is pretty uninteresting, and. There's maybe there's between like Robert Pattinson and John David Washington and a few other scenes, but like, Michael Caine was in this movie, and I have no idea what we got out of it. I don't remember what we got out of that scene. It probably moved something forward, but I don't know.
Yeah, Michael Caine like led all the scenes with the
exactly all the scenes with the woman in Mumbai, I think that's where she was. All that stuff. Most of those scenes, I don't know what
they just pointed them to the next heist.
Supposed to take out. Yeah,
the next set.
So like, anyway, the point is like
on this freeway
in a Bond movie. Typically, those scenes are concise. They're tight. There's some fun banter. Whereas all of these scenes just seemed a lot more drawn out and much less interesting.
Bond does care about creating memorable characters too. This movie has zero interest in that. Mm-hmm. To the point where they don't even name their characters.
Yeah,
like the characters are throwaway in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will also say, Derek, you talked a lot about the action. I found that a lot of the action was hard to follow. I don't really know why this movie stands out from other Christopher Nolan movies, where the action really is really well put together and edited. But I mean, me and Brandon talked about it a lot last night. But like that whole ending sequence, I don't know what they were doing, where they were going, who they were shooting at, and like.
It was definitely the most confusing.
It was hard to follow, and like the pincer move. That's a great concept, and like a lot of those, the way that it was shot, and also like just the visual effects of that sequence. I think some of it may have been a little clunky because like you'd get a lot of the people trying to fake walking backwards, or there's a couple weird things like that. But overall, I think there's some pretty brilliantly stitched together like time bending shots in that sequence. And like the building blowing up, it gets to the two times, the two times meet, and then they blow up the building twice. That was such a cool visual sequence, but I don't know what that meant or why they had to do that.
Wasn't that
They were
a
just
distraction?
fighting. They were just fighting the militia.
But no, there was like a big
militia.
countdown, and they're like,
Yeah,
we have to
there was that
do the
distraction
thing.
so we
And
can go
3,
forward.
2, shoot.
Like that was.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
That was a
I didn't
distraction,
understand
so
that
they
at
could
all.
go.
Well,
Why they had
the
to-
whole movie, all the action's confusing intentionally because it's two directions of time crossing paths with each other. But that's why I think they're so cool and so good, is because, especially rewatching them today, like they're like perfectly done. Like everything tracks. There's no like that's where all of his detail was put into, was the making sure those scenes don't have any like loopholes or like problems. Like that ending scene is definitely the most confusing, especially if you missed any of the dialogue. Like you have no idea what's happening, which was me. I was like, literally after the movie, I Googled what happens in the third act of Tenet, because I was like, I don't know what's happening in this scene. It's really cool. But then someone just like, it was just like a throwaway line where like, oh, they're fighting his militia, and that's his like end of the world thing. And that's the part of the plot that just doesn't really, like, we don't know. It's just he's ending the world
Just
with that
militia.
algorithm thing. And so literally it's their one direction is going to defuse the bomb, and the idea is to pull his militia towards that group, but they're intentionally going to fail so that the other group that's going the other direction can steal the algorithm without having to deal with the militia. That's the whole plot of what's happening in that scene.
Which team?
Is doing which?
So the red team was.
I
So the
can't
blue
remember which
team
one
was
this was.
intentionally failing.
Yeah, that
I don't
kick
know.
ass. The kick ass.
I mean, I guess like that might all be true, and it might not be the purpose to really understand what's going on, but I think that all just adds to the confusion of the whole sequence and like
Yeah, that sequence
of the
was
whole
really
movie.
confusing. It would have been nice if
And
it was set up.
It kind
better.
of pulls you. I really wish that all that had come together, and I was totally there with them. I'm like, yeah, you got to get that algorithm and save the world. But it's like, I don't know why this guy's really trying to destroy the world. I don't know what the plan for this infiltration is really. I don't know what the algorithm does. I don't know how the world is going to end. I don't, there's just too much that I don't know
Yeah.
to really just be on board for this
Yeah,
action
so there's a
scene.
lot to not know about this movie. The movie's plot is very confusing, but yeah, I mean, I thought the action was pretty great, though. I mean, I don't know. I think we all can agree that there was mixed reactions to this movie, and it, depending on how much you're gonna like it, depends on how much you're gonna like, the big action compared to the overly confusing plot, which seems like confusing for almost no reason, but. I do think we got to move on to the next movie. Yeah. So, again, we're mixed on it, but me and Derek were very happy with the action and the experience in the movie. Sean and Brandon were a little more mixed on how it all came together.
Definitely enjoyed it, but I don't know if it really will hold up over time.
So, with that, we're going to Brandon's movie. Brandon, do you want to set up your movie for us?
Yeah, so the movie I chose is Sean Durkin's new film, The Nest. The IMDb synopsis is: life for an entrepreneur and his American family begins to take a twisted turn after moving into an England country manor. So this movie starring Jude Law, Carrie Coon, and they do a fantastic performances in this film. I think a lot of people really love this director for his last film, and I can't see it, Mother Marcy Mary Marie.
Martha Marcy May Marie.
4 M's. Apparently it's critically acclaimed, and I really want to go back and check that out.
It was
People have
2011.
talked about it a lot, and it came out a while ago, 2011. I knew nothing about this film when I picked it. Slash Film gave it rave reviews, and it got me really excited about it. But for me, like, going into it blind, I was really, really impressed and like totally on board with what this director is putting together. I think it helps so much about how just like clean and crisp this movie is directed from the get-go. And these two performances that are extremely strong, like Oscar worthy in a lot of respects, and just bringing like really complex, faulty characters to the screen, especially in Jude Law. There's not a lot that you love about them, but they are weird and messed up enough to where you want to know what they're going to do next, or how they're going to fuck up next a lot of the time. I think it also helps in a drama like this that the movie has such an incredible strong ending to me in those final moments. I think for how subtle it is, it really builds up to a great climax on all fronts with all members of the family, and then ends with this beautiful shot that really impressed me and says a lot about all four of the family members, and it leaves you kind of thinking about what's going to be next for them because it's not so clean cut. Not everything is awful and not everything is great, and you can just imagine what their lives will go like after that final shot, after it cuts, which I thought was really cool. I don't think you can say enough about like this director's eye for filmmaking. The way he like where he puts his camera in a room, the amount of time he lets like a cut last on these actors, and there's just so much beauty that's happening throughout this film with the camera work and the staging and where the characters are moving within the shot, and even the editing, and just that kept me so fascinated all the way through. So I was super high on this film. And what'd you guys think?
I also really liked it. I thought it was solid, drama about family falling apart, and it's just from top to bottom, like solid all the way through. I echo pretty much everything you say. It kind of felt like a traditional, like super upsetting, like Brandon drama that we watch, but that I agree, like that ending really brought it home for me, and like I honestly kind of saw it as like a really happy ending. Not necessarily happy, like as in everything was like looking up for them, but I felt like they were at the end, everyone in that family was kind of like right where they needed to be at that time, like to really learn from like what they went through, and like I see them having like a bright future. Not like, and it's like that movie plays a lot with like social status and stuff like that, and like people's egos and stuff like that. And I think the whole experience of what happens in the film was really humbling for the dad. And I think like, I don't know, I just love that, like that ending just kind of felt like like the whole family, and especially the daughter, like just kind of like, yeah, like life kind of sucks a lot of times, like, and we're, it's rough, but we're all gonna help each other through it, and
we're not abandoning you.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know, that was like about as heartwarming as you can get from that kind of a story, I think. So I was really happy that it didn't leave me like depressed and like
and it wasn't too rough. You mentioned something about my tendencies in movies. It wasn't really that brutal of a film at any point.
No, it wasn't. I just kind of thought that's where it was going to go in the end.
I mean,
it kind of has a looming feeling of it.
I mean, for me, just real quick on my experience, like Shannon came in and there was like 15 or 20 minutes left, and she just like walked in, looked at it, and goes, "Was this Brand's pick for the month?" Like, just I could have been watching anything. I could have been watching a Christmas movie, and just like, yeah, this is Brand's movie. It's a
I didn't even see a trailer for this film. Like, I knew nothing about it.
Hey,
when I
you knew your pick, man. You just instinctually you knew that this was going to be your type of movie.
Yeah. For me, I was a little. It took me a little bit to get into the movie. I think I had a pretty interesting opening, but then it just kind of dawdled a little bit or I experienced it as kind of dawdling, but then I kind of realized in the like second and third acts that everything that felt really slow and unimportant in that first act was really setting up some really interesting little tidbits throughout that really paid off in especially the third act. There's so many great little moments that came back in such subtle and powerful ways. Like just like the way he treats his wife early on, and then like how the son treats the sister a little bit later on, like really subtle, interesting things like that display a really complex family dynamic. I really appreciated that.
It was an incredibly subtle movie. There was a few things that like I noticed that the movie didn't really like show, like the movie didn't really like hammer in at all. Like one thing I want to ask you is if you noticed, but I'm pretty sure that that was her daughter like before like the movie, like that wasn't Jude Law's daughter.
Right.
Did you guys pick that up?
So.
Yeah, like
at one point he says that they were her and her mom were alone in an apartment or something.
Yeah,
like
and
that
then but then when he shows his mom. When he shows his mom the picture too, like it's just a picture of his son, like it's like a picture of like the three of them, because she was like the daughter was inside the house and he doesn't even mention her, and like but they don't really hammer it in. It's just like a quick line of dialogue, and then that explains so much more about the character dynamics of
even earlier on. Like I think when they were still in America, the daughter calls him, I don't know, by his name, Jude. I don't remember his name, but then the son calls him Dad.
Protagonist.
And that was one of those little tidbits that really adds complexity to that family dynamic.
Jude Law's really good.
Yeah.
Like there's so many moments in there. It's just like, God damn.
And same with Carrie Coon. Yeah. She is she's my favorite character in the series The Leftovers.
Oh, right.
And by far my favorite character in that series.
Yeah.
And this is so cool seeing her translate perfectly into this like acting role on like, in an actual movie. And I don't know if she's done a lot of movies before this, but God, she's like a perfect actor.
And Fargo season 3 too.
Okay. I haven't gotten that far. Yeah, she's great.
She does a lot of cop roles on TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the decision to set this in the 90s, too.
It was the 80s.
Oh yeah, it was kind of a period piece.
It was the 80s.
Yeah, or maybe it was 80s.
80s,
It was definitely the soundtrack alone.
I didn't notice for a while actually.
Yeah,
until he gets to the office. The computers.
I just
all
noticed
old,
because the daughter's music that she was like really into like the pop music of the time. Yeah,
it was like the Smiths and like
There's even one time when song comes on the radio and you're like, oh, what time period is this? And she hits record to like record it on a tape, so she can like hear the song later on. Like,
yeah. And just like the idea of that tech boom that was coming, just right on the horizon in the 90s, and him trying to ride that wave, and kind of that dynamic between the more reserved, your place of the English versus the entrepreneurial spirit, the independent spirit of America, and how that plays into his character, and he kind of spells it out at certain points, but I thought I loved all that.
I liked how in the ending you think so much more is going to go wrong with like the car and at night and all these,
for sure,
and the party and the house, and I thought so much more was going to go wrong, and I think the movie knows that too, and they're like cutting at the right moments to like freak you out.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, the soundtrack is extremely ominous. Not like the pop music that pops up, which I love, by the way, but the soundtrack, the score is
the film's got
scored and shot like a
it's like a horror movie,
almost like a horror film.
Yeah. And I don't know, I was almost like expecting more genre type stuff, and I don't know. I think you guys are more high on this movie than I was. I keep teetering between like 3 and 3.5 stars, honestly, just because I don't know. I don't know who I would recommend this movie to. That's why I keep coming back to who would I recommend this? Brandon, Brandon. But like,
you should watch this movie.
It just it's like about like rich people, but they're not really rich, and they're pretending to be rich, which is like. It's pretty interesting, but also I just kind of like wasn't super into that. I like the idea of playing with identity and like really who they truly are, but I didn't feel like the movie went super in depth on that. Like it was a lot of like Jude Law, like I don't know. I Heart Huckabees is one of my favorite movies. Like that's one of my top 10, 15 favorite movies. And he goes through like a similar thing in that movie where he's like constantly telling the story about Shania Twain and showing that like he is someone of substance because he like knows Shania Twain, and he like it's like an image that he puts on, and then he like kind of it comes down to like how he tries to stop telling the story, and it's like, how am I not myself? And all of that is like really interesting to me. But like to me, I like prefer that over this. I mean, that was a quirky comedy, but this just was just I don't know, the thing about like pretending to be rich. I guess it just kind of like I don't know. By the end of it, I was just like, okay, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, he doesn't.
But I loved how they explored why, and like. Talking about his life with his dad, and or not even really talking about it, but just very subtly hinting at it, and then when he went to go see his mom, and
how cold his mom
was, and there was something that his mom said that like made him like kind of shocked him, and he kind of got almost teared up for a second, because I think it was like he was such a great man, or I don't know, but that like performance in that scene by Jude Law was so incredible, and just kind of demonstrated the subtlety of the film, but also how powerful and complex I think the movie was and the characters were. But yeah, just the mom says something pretty mundane, and the way that affected him was really interesting.
I mean, there is a lot. I don't think I'm giving it enough credit. I mean, yeah, it's definitely at least 3.5. So there definitely is a lot of like subtlety to it. Like I almost like wish we had more time so we could like I don't know, because I feel like we could just have a whole conversation about the scene with the mom, because I thought she was like maybe justifiably cold because he like just vanished out of her life and hadn't seen him for 15 years or something. So and then like the ending was I think we could probably talk about the ending for half an hour. We could probably talk about the horse for a really long time. Like I'm still pretty confused on what happened with the horse. Like I read Wikipedia afterward, and it was like, improper burial. That's what happened. But then it looked pretty proper to me. And then I was in a Slash film, and they were saying that like the horse was breathing, and I was like, I didn't see that.
I think the kid saw the boy saw the horse breathing. Yeah. But then by the time the mom got there, I don't think it was breathing anymore.
I mean, but that all that was very
I thought that was really cool, and honestly, that kind of that scene was kind of almost felt like a horror movie scene too, like when the kid goes out there and sees it.
Did you see it breathing? Did you guys see that?
Yeah. I saw it.
Pretty sure you did. Yeah,
I absolutely saw it. That's the scene.
Like, that was
shows
one of the.
It's in the foreground. The kid's in the background. You see its chest is pumping up and down.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't see that.
There was that scene, and then like a couple other scenes almost made me think, is this movie going to go supernatural?
God,
like,
I was thinking that until
here?
the very end. It's like it's going to flip like that switch here any second.
Yeah.
I could feel it. Like they're in this creepy house. They're like,
and see, I'm a weirdo. Like I'm a weirdo. Like I would have loved like another half hour where it just gets supernatural and weird. But
well, they even have that moment where she locks the door, and then like she goes to lock the other one and looks back, and the door's open.
Y'all are strangers to
totally.
me.
Yeah,
we're watching the others all of a sudden, But
happening. But no, just the dad came home and had his key. It's like
Yeah.
Well,
that was a great.
Again, I think we could keep talking about this movie for a long time, but we don't have. I think we need to go on to the next movie. But really interesting pick, Brandon. I feel like it's a pretty great drama, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that very subtle and strong drama movie. And we rented it on Amazon, so I think all of us rented it on Amazon. So you can digitally rent it today. All right, guys, so my movie pick is next, and I picked the new David Fincher film, Mank. I don't think David Fincher's made a movie for like 6 years. This is his first one since Gone Girl. He's also made other great movies such as like Seven and Fight Club and The Social Network. So yeah, I mean, he's a great
he's been
director.
caught up in television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of TV. You know, he did. He helps. You know, he did House of Cards, and I know there's another Netflix show he did. But Mank is his newest movie. It went straight up to Netflix. It's a Netflix movie. So real quick, I'm gonna read the plot summary. 1930s Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane. So, I think this movie has a lot going on, and I think it's extremely dense. But it's extremely a niche movie. You know, it's like like the story is so specific about a specific time frame, a specific person doing a specific thing, and that thing is writing the script for Citizen Kane. But it's also about him like just being in Hollywood, and it's told through a lot of flashbacks of his life and how he got inspiration for Citizen Kane. You know, Citizen Kane is the classic. It's regarded as one of the best movies ever made. Orson Welles wrote and directed it, and there's another like layer to this movie where Orson Welles was trying to take sole screenwriting credit of the movie, and Mank did write the movie, and it's disputed how much like Orson Welles actually wrote in real life. It's disputed how much he actually wrote. The movie implies that Orson Welles didn't write any of it, but that has been disputed in real life. That's beside the point, just because the movie is just all about Mank's perspective. And Mank's perspective is that he's basically bedridden because he got into a car accident, and he's dictating the ideas for the movie to his secretary, and she's writing it all down. And he's having these like flashbacks. He's like reliving his life and his experiences in Hollywood, and he's drawing inspiration from his experiences for the characters and the events of Citizen Kane. And I thought this was a pretty interesting movie. It's kind of weird because David Fincher is like, to me, one of the best filmmakers like out there right now. Like he makes consistently very worthwhile stuff. He's a great director. He puts a lot of thought into what he's doing. And, I think with this one too, like the cinematography is on point. It's fascinating the way this movie's shot. The soundtrack is amazing, but also like it doesn't really, to me, feel like a masterpiece. Not that like every movie needs to be a masterpiece, but this one feels like an extremely personal project. The script was actually written by his late father, Jack Fincher, I think his name is.
I was wondering. I saw the name. Wasn't sure of the relation.
Who died in 2003.
Yes, he died a while back. And I guess he wanted to make this movie back in the 90s
really
when his dad was still alive. He wanted to make this like after the game, but he didn't make it, and he made it. So this was him making it, and he's following his dad's script, and I feel like this is the kind of movie that's going to get a lot of like meh sort of reviews, but I think like in the long run, like in a few years, people are going to talk about this movie like similar to how like the Coen brothers made A Serious Man, or Spielberg made AI, or Scorsese made Silence. Like these like really personal movies that like have a lot going on, a lot of like interesting detail, a lot of like pretty like fascinating stuff, but also like not super accessible for everybody. I don't know about you guys, but at least like for me at first, I was pretty confused with the plotting and the characters. Like I thought like almost everyone looked the same, so I was having a hard time like differentiating who was who. And I also like was kind of like taken out of it a little bit with like how he kept going back in time. I was having a hard time. Like there's a point where it becomes about this like political. There's a guy running for governor, and his friend, who Citizen Kane is based on, is trying to squash that guy for his election. And
it's played by
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill Nye the Science
and
Guy.
He starts. So the studio that he's working for is making what do you call it? They're making like propaganda ads about how the guy who's running is awful and stuff, and they work, but he's like torn up about it. Anyway, the movie though doesn't really have a plot line. I feel like it's kind of like all over the place, just kind of like dropping in on his memory, and it's kind of just pulling ideas out. And some people are calling this a hangout movie, and I don't really see it as a hangout movie in the same way that like Patterson or Before Sunset is. I feel like it's more of just like, I don't know, like it's a very unique movie, and I feel like it's just like about like the mind and how someone writes and how someone goes into their head to pull out stuff to like put on script. And I feel like that's kind of just what the movie is. It's different than almost anything I'd seen, and I don't think all of it works, but I do want to say that like I basically watched it twice. Like the second time I didn't watch it all the way through, but after I watched the first time, I watched some video reviews and I read a bunch about it, and then I watched it again, and it made a lot more sense. Like I was just like, okay, this is everything that's happening, and it was much easier to follow knowing what was going on and stuff. So again, I think it's gonna be a movie that like people will talk about more fondly in a few years, but it's just so different than most movies, and so I don't know. It's all about old Hollywood. So I really think that like if you have a fascination or an interest in old Hollywood, you're probably gonna be more akin to like get into this movie. But also, I don't know. I guess I want to open it to you guys because I think like
Mark Nick's words, this movie will age well.
Well, I think Nick's onto something with that, because I think part of it is David Fincher is a very popular director in pop culture, and this is not like what we're used to getting from David Fincher at all. And so I think people just being, it's been so long, David Fincher's finally coming out with a new movie, and it's kind of, I think there
isn't a single pervert.
It's kind of disappointing, I think, for some people, just because it's like you don't get that David Fincher thriller, like, that top notch, like one of the best thrillers you've ever seen, like, which is what he usually delivers. And so I think I would bet that people are viewing it more skeptically than they would if it was just some no-name guy that made the same exact movie. You know what I mean? And so I think in that sense, it probably will age very well once people are looking back at his career and like, like that was like a really cool, like different movie, part of his like,
it'll add to the variety of the breadth of his career.
Because nothing about it's like inherently bad. It's just, like you said, it's like it feels very personal, and it's a lot of just people sitting and talking about things that happened like 90 years ago or whatever, long time ago. So it's like,
this is a movie that pretty much every scene was so fun to watch. Like, I just enthralled by everything that Gary Oldman was saying, every moment of his performance, and the super fun banter, the super sharp wit, and I just loved listening to him talk and him do that act, or that him talk the way that he was talking. It was so interesting. Like I don't know what
old man accent.
What you got? Yeah, his tone and the way he kind of the tempo of the way he talked was really interesting.
You lose him in movies. Like he's like I know he's like very well acclaimed. He won Best Actor like 2 years ago, but he still feels underrated in a lot of ways because he just morphs. You lose him in movies, and he's just really good.
Definitely. But like, I don't know how much in the end it really all came together and just nailed the ending, or how much it all like
I don't think it came together, honestly. I don't think think the last the climax of the movie is him having the conversation with Orson Welles that he wants screenwriting credit, and that had been mentioned before. It had just come up that he wasn't going to get credit, and it was a big dramatic moment where he's confronting Orson Welles about it. But that's the climax of the movie, but it doesn't build to that. It just kind of he's just kind of I want credit. Well, blah blah, and then they have an argument.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is an interesting character arc for him, I think. Him deciding to do that, and it kind of shows that he has grown and changed and learned throughout the movie. But yeah, it is a really interesting way to end it, because it's not a through narrative that kind of builds logically to that character arc. But yeah, I just I guess my whole thing, it was just such a fun movie to watch. Yeah, it's so well shot. I love the sound design of the movie.
I need to jump in there.
I didn't personally have a problem understanding it, but I like that it sounded like these characters were on these huge sound stages in old Hollywood, and you could hear their voices reverberating.
Sure. So I
walls.
watched Citizen Kane and this movie back to back, night to night, and they were obviously trying to mock a 1940s soundstage, recording microphones, overdub, whatever they did back in that day, and this is weird that I'm talking about sound design twice in the same episode. I don't think I've talked about sound design in years for about a movie. But God, again, I'm not getting old, but this movie, they messed up in the mixing here.
Well, you are getting old. We're all getting old.
I literally had to turn on the subtitles. And I know that the dialogue is sharp and witty and complex, but the way they were mixing that old sound, Citizen Kane, I had not a single issue the entire movie. But this one, I had it cranked, and then I had to turn on subtitles 45 minutes into the movie. And finally, when the subtitles were on, I felt really relieved, and I was pissed I didn't do it earlier. I don't know, but I don't think you should have to do that in a movie, especially when I watched Citizen Kane the day before, and it was fine.
Definitely didn't even think about the sound in this movie.
Yeah,
I had no issues the whole time.
Yeah, neither.
I guess I did think about the sound.
Neither did
but
I.
It didn't, nothing about the sound bothered me.
I did listen to it on headphones. But
I do think about 40 minutes into the movie it gets a lot more interesting, in my opinion. There's that scene about half an hour in where he goes to that the shoot, and you don't know how or why he got there. That was another thing that kind of threw me off with this movie, where he would just appear in places, and the first time watching it,
places,
yeah, in a lot of ways it was kind of like Inherent Vice, where he would just appear places, and you'd be like, wait, how did he get what's going on? That guy invited him to his aunt's house, and all of a sudden he wakes up at the aunt's house, what? And he's hungover, he's drinking, but I think that's it's in his memory, so I think you can excuse a lot of that kind of stuff just as it's something that happened in his memory. But yeah, Brandy, I'm sorry that you couldn't hear the movie. I don't know. Again, I watch a lot of movies with subtitles anyway, but I don't know. That's kind of strange.
What do you guys think of him and his wife's relationship in this movie?
I liked that she was poor Sarah. That was literally her name. I don't know if she's credited as that.
Sarah. Who's Sarah? Oh, you mean poor Sarah?
Oh, you mean literally in the subtitles they capitalized the P on poor Sarah. It was like Orson Welles was oh,
I'm curious if it
poor
changes.
Sarah sell over that house, and yeah.
Does it change after she's don't call me poor Sarah anymore?
It seemed a little sad, and he wasn't that great of. I mean, he was an alcoholic. Yeah. He neglected her a bit, and she provided way too much for him. It seemed like, and he knew it. He asked her so many times, "Why the hell are you with me?" And the best answer she could give him was I'm not bored. You keep at least it's interesting when I'm around.
Yeah,
you.
I know. I love that line. Actually, and
that was the best answer she could give him.
She's I've been with you this long. I gotta see how it ends. Which is really dark.
It's a little sad, but
it is really clever. Sad. But they had just an interesting relationship throughout the whole movie. Because I was trying to pinpoint where they're at like in their marriage, like are they like on the outs, or are they like happily married, or like what? And there's like a moment where he's kind of, he's always kind of flirting with the girls throughout the movie, and like she has him like follow Amanda Seyfried like out of the room at one point when she exits, and like
they're at a party or something.
Yeah, so it kind of seems like she's a little more in touch with like him and his processes as a writer, and like I don't know, it's just kind of interesting dynamic to see throughout the movie, and that was kind of one of the things that I was thinking about a lot throughout the movie whenever they're on screen together. It's like, it's just so hard to pinpoint. And then kind of at the end, I kind of got the feeling that it was kind of just like, he's probably provided a pretty happy money wise for her and the kids, and she understands that he's not going to be a part of their lives forever because he's an old dying man.
The 1930s, and
his ex is supposed to be like 43
really,
years old.
That's what they say. He's like, you're an old man. He's like, I'm 43 or something.
Like Gary Oldman's not 43,
No.
Yeah.
like 60 or something. Literally.
But,
I wanted to highlight just a couple of really great scenes. The huge like parlor room hangout with like 50 people all having the same discussion at once. I mean, it's like super unrealistic, but just artful and fun to watch. This like mob of people having this intellectual conversation with each other.
Yeah, I was
and
thrown
then
off
also
on that
the,
scene the
the
first time I
election.
saw it, but then when I came back around, I was like, okay, so maybe they're not like. Again, I got kind of hung up on like the realism of the movie, and it was like, okay, maybe like they're all just in his mind a little bit. Like it doesn't really totally matter like if they're all still sitting there having the same conversation. Anyway, go on. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah, a little unrealistic, but like artful, and then other scene that really stood out for me is like the election scene.
yeah.
Was just like really creative. Like the editing in that scene was crazy and really well done. He went out of his way to get these like amazing Orson Welles quick shots that are so well staged, but they last like half a second, and then just moves on to the next cut. And that was all over the election scene as well. I liked that a lot.
yeah.
I mean, we
Fascinating
real quick
character.
before we move on to the next movie, I just wanted to like real quick, just because they both came out like this month, behind the scenes, like we've all talked about, like for years, the four of us have like compared Christopher Nolan and David Fincher like directly for some reason. I think it's because they typically have movies that come out around the same time. I mean, Nolan in the last 6
On a
years
similar
has come out
schedule.
with more movies than Fincher, but for a while there, it was like they came up around the same time. Then it was like they were both making indie movies. Then Nolan went in one direction where he was making bigger movies that were thoughtful but bigger, and Fincher went like more like into thriller but like also like very smart. And so I don't know, we for whatever reason the four of us have always compared these guys directly. I think there was a point where
And now that we have two movies that could not possibly be more different,
Yeah.
let's compare them.
well, like who won this round? Like I don't think we have enough time to like do a full like who's better,
Yeah, just
Nolan
hot
or
take.
Fincher. But like I do think that like both of these movies were like kind of, I don't want to say weaker, but yeah, maybe weaker is the like not their best. Like I don't think either of these movies were their like masterpieces, and like in some ways like showed like the faults of both of them in a lot, and like both of them were like a little bit more confusing than they needed to be, I think.
I think they were both like overindulgent by these directors, like in their own like craft and stuff.
Their own style and stuff.
Regardless, I think Fincher won this round, and I think he's won the war as well.
Well, the war's still going.
I've definitely
right?
like Tenet. I'll probably watch many times. I've already watched it twice, and I don't know. I might watch Mank again once. It probably wasn't interesting enough for me to really revisit too many times.
I'd say Mank was the stronger film overall.
I think there's more to like talk about and like intellectually appreciate with Mank.
Yeah,
And I think I'll go back to it again and again probably, but also
honestly, like after I watched this movie, the first thing I thought was like, oh, I'm probably gonna rewatch that movie.
I mean, I had a lot more fun with the rewatch than I did the first watch. Like I finished the first watch and I was kind of like, I don't know, guys. Like I was seriously like, I'm kind of like blah on it a little bit. And then the rewatch, I was like, this is exciting, but
is that the case with Tenet? Derek, was the second viewing better than the first?
It was just as much fun. It was more fun, like understanding what is actually happening in the action scenes, like knowing like what comes later. It was funner to pay attention to all the little details, and like actually, it was a lot. I was more curious about how they filmed it the first time, and then rewatching it, I was able to kind of catch like, oh, I get how they did that. Like that's really cool how they did that right there. So that was really fun.
Cool. So, Brandon says Fincher won the round and the war, which I think is presumptuous because they're hopefully going to make like 10 more movies each. Derek says Nolan. Sean says Fincher. Cool. So the war.
What does Nick say?
Gosh, I think I'm going to go Fincher, but I think they're extremely close, honestly. I think they're both. I think I'm going to end up giving both 4-star movies, but I don't think either is going to make my top 10 of the year. Maybe either top 20, depending on the rest of the year, how the year goes. So, anyway, I think let's go on to the last movie. Sean, you got the last movie of the day?
Is that me?
Could be.
All right. All right. The movie I picked was Wolfwalkers. The IMDb plot summary is a young apprentice hunter and her father journey to Ireland to help wipe out the last wolf pack. But everything changes when she befriends a free-spirited girl from a mysterious tribe rumored to transform into wolves by night.
Nice.
This is a Tom Moore film who did a couple other incredibly animated films, just beautifully animated films, Song of the Sea and The Secret of Kells. The studio, which blanking on the name, I don't remember, but the studio also did The Breadwinner.
Yeah, it's in my top 10 handful of years ago.
It's also an incredible film. And so, this guy is just kind of batting 1,000 at this point. And it's all three movies have a lot of very similar themes and ideas and story devices. All three have children who have lost a parent or both parents and are being looked after by kind of an overprotective parental figure. Sometimes it's an actual parent still, sometimes it's a family member. And they are, in at least 2 of the movies, they're literally boxed in by a wall, the wall of a city. And they're kind of just growing up and starting to want to explore their world and see what there is out there in the world. But their overprotective parental figure is trying to keep them safe and keep them from exploring that world. So I think that's really interesting. I actually rewatched both Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea in the last couple months. And I thought that was really interesting. He's like, these are some really strong ideas and themes that he carries into all of his movies. And actually, come to think of it, Breadwinner is a
it sounds very similar too. Extremely similar.
Some similar themes. And there's a lot of depth to his movies. In a lot of ways, honestly, not just the themes, but also like all of his movies are very much steeped in folklore, and I don't know anything about Irish folklore, but I assume it's kind of historical Irish folklore and Irish creatures and magic.
Right, Wolfwalkers got to be a real story, right? A real
I'm not sure if it's based on a folklore story or if just the idea of the Wolfwalker is a is an Irish folk tale, or it's a.
I'm taking a class in mythology right now, actually, and I can tell you that there's a lot of history with Irish folklore turning into animals, and I can't tell you about specifically anything about wolves or people turning into wolves, but this is a common thing.
It adds up.
Yeah. So I love that. And then everything about his movie is also steeped in Irish culture, like from the music to the art style, the visuals, and obviously the setting. All of them are in Ireland, except for the breadwinner. But it's and just the ideas and the themes are so interesting. Unexpectedly interesting from a kids movie like this. There's kind of a lot of sadness and a lot of darker themes to these movies, and deals with death and the loss of people that you love, and it doesn't really shy away from them. I guess. Do I even have to mention the art of this movie? It's so interesting, and this one's even a little different from the other ones in that it like leaves behind some pencil marks, from like sketching marks too. Inside the characters. So there's like
really the letterbox
that adds
image.
another layer to it. But like, man, just the art of this movie is so incredible and unique, and it says so much about what's going on and about the characters. It's like in just a single shot, you can just look at it almost like a painting and be affected by it emotionally. And then on top of that, you have like this whole story behind it. And it's almost like if you go to a museum or an art gallery and you're looking at a piece of art, and you just look at it and it's beautiful all by itself, but then they'll often have little descriptions underneath them, and then you read that and you look back at the picture and it takes on a whole new meaning, and it can really affect you emotionally, and it kind of puts a story to it. And it's almost like that's what he's doing with this movie. He's like creating the story for this artwork that play together. Those two things play together so well.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's such an emotional and powerful experience.
The art, honestly, is where I got most of my enjoyment out of this movie. Like, it was so fun to look at and just see how they were crafting, like, shot by shot, and different ideas. There's even some, like, really abstract, awesome things. Just the way the city looked, and that top-down view of just the grid of that, like, super enclosed, restrictive village that they had, authoritarian village. It was really abstract and interesting. The script was so simple and tight, and everything comes full circle. I loved that about this film. Like, anyone can get that. I know, Derek, I think it's cool that you watched it with Phoenix. You can talk about that later. But, like, it would be such a great kids film as long as the ending doesn't get too scary. And this film did something in the ending that was really great. It sets up and it reaches this point where the rest of the movie is just one long extended climax, and it literally lasts like 35 minutes of just like a sequence of events that builds and builds and builds of just action and adventure. Once it gets rolling, and it builds to like an epic, fire and amazing climax that I was just really into, and I think it's just really great written script.
Yeah, I love the art too, Brandon. You were talking about how like beautiful and abstract some of it was. Like that, I agree. That's what really sucked me into this movie. It was just like it's one of those movies where I could just like be like, wow, this is so cool how it looks. It's really cool. I really liked how my one of my favorite parts was how the imagery of when she was turning into the wolf, and like the POV of her going through the town as the wolf, and how like it was like her spirit kind of was like trying to get back to her body a little bit, and like that whole like dream-esque sort of view that they were going with. That was a part that I got really into.
It was cool world building. Like, just that concept is just unique and new, and how you stay asleep and she has to get back to her body, and that was just a really interesting story.
And her trying to fight the sleep for as long as she can because she doesn't have control over it.
Yeah. Again, this is like stuff that right out of mythology. Like, I can't tell you exactly what amount. It's not like a deep class. It's an intro to mythology class, but like, this sort of thing of like someone falling asleep and then turning into an animal, and then they could potentially get stuck there. Like that's what happens to like the wild girl's mom. She gets like captured as a wolf, and so she's like stuck in that body because she can't get back to. Very sad, but also like. It's pretty interesting. Like that's
the first scene where that happens is pretty surprising too.
Yeah.
When it happens to her and her dad is like freaking out.
Yeah.
It's a really great twist.
He's carrying her around and she's just like asleep, and like no one who doesn't know what's going on is like, okay, he's just carrying sleeping his daughter who's asleep. But it's like, no, she's actually that wolf over there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I echo everything you guys say. I was looking at like even the image on Letterboxd, like you can see the circles for all the heads, like the initial circle you draw when you're gonna sculpt like a skull around it and stuff. You can see it on like all the wolves and stuff. Like they leave that in. It's just a unique kind of a little more personal way to show kind of the craft and stuff that they put into it.
Yeah.
Phoenix was he was, no offense, but I guess they're both your movies. He was way more into this one than Nausicaä.
What? How dare he?
I don't think he got up once through this whole movie. He just sat there.
Oh, nice.
We just watched it.
It's always still surprising to me when like Lane loves movies, but also like she's the first movie that she ever sat all the way through was My Neighbor Totoro. She loves other movies, like she loves 101 Dalmatians, but whatever it was, like it's just still fascinating to me what movies kids like. Yeah,
it's kind of
don't move to.
This is only like maybe the third one ever. But
did it not get too intense at the end with like the wolves hunting all the people and just like taking them out in the woods? And
he didn't seem to mind it. He's just
that's other people.
He's got like my stare. I don't know if you know, or I'm like. He's just sit there like that and watch them. So I don't know.
I mean, yeah, Sean, you mentioned earlier, or maybe it was Brandon, but like that it's like a kids movie, and like I was actually like thinking about that when you said that, where I was like, there's a lot of things about this that I don't think are a kids movie. Like I think it's an adult movie, an adult anime movie in a lot of ways. But then I remember the violence and the action at the end, and it doesn't actually ever get that violent. Like I feel like Nausicaä is way more violent, and other Miyazaki movies and other anime movies that are more for adults definitely get more violent than this one. Because even when the wolves are like being brutal and stuff, it's not like they're showing blood, or I even question whether anyone died a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
They get chased off.
The movie does
great movie. Makes me really want to go back and definitely watch Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea for sure. This like really blew me away, and it's getting a lot of acclaim for sure. Like this, I don't know. This will probably be up for an Oscar, and I don't know if that's the first time it will be, but I bet it'll be on there.
I feel like Secret of Kells was nominated at least. I don't know about Song of the Sea.
I also liked what they did in the opening scene of the movie. Which was kind of it was pretty surprising to me. Like it pretty much opens up with like wolves attacking, and they scratch that guy, and he's all bloodied and stuff, and they come out and heal him. But it was a good tone setter, I think, for the rest of the movie, and it was kind of a shock because I really wasn't expecting it to be like that kind of movie. I hadn't seen any trailers for it or anything, but it just looks so sweet and happy, But it really was for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good movie, Sean. I'm really glad you picked this one. This was like, I hope it gets nominated for best anime movie, and hopefully it wins. I mean, we'll see if other big ones come out.
We'll see. Wait, what's it called?
Soul is.
Soul. We'll see Soul.
But I think we should maybe wrap up the episode, guys. So, just it's been fun talking about these movies, and like I said at the top of the show, that we have a few more December movies coming out. Christmas, there's a few big releases that come out on Christmas Day, right to streaming services. So real quick, we're gonna go over the movies that we're gonna talk about next month. But so Derek, what movie are you picking for next month?
Wonder Woman 1984. It's finally getting released on HBO Max on Christmas Day. So if you have that, it's just a free $200 million blockbuster you can watch at home. So
yeah, very excited for this one. Very curious about it and excited.
yeah.
I'm picking Soul for my pick. It's the new Pixar movie. It's coming out right onto Disney Plus again, I think on Christmas Day. And it's, like I said, it's a new Pixar movie, but I honestly don't know the plot of it, but I've heard that it's similar to Inside Out in a lot of ways, which could be my favorite Pixar movie. Like if it wasn't for Toy Story, then Inside Out would absolutely be my number one. So, so Brandon and Sean, you guys are kind of doing something different. Do one of you guys want to set up what's going on with your picks?
Sure. I guess we were just trying to figure out what we wanted to do with Small Axe. Steve McQueen's 5-movie project,
An
5
anthology
short film
film.
project, anthology.
It's not
project,
really an
I don't know what
anthology
you
though, because
call
they're
it.
all like unrelated. Like they're all like, I
Yeah.
don't know what Small Axe means, but every week for the last like 5 weeks, he's been putting out a new movie every Friday on Amazon Prime. And
Crazy.
And
you guys are gonna watch.
yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do about it, and I'm probably going to watch all 5 movies, but I think from what I've heard, Mangrove, which is I believe the first one that he put out, seems to be the best reviewed, or people tend to think that one's maybe his best, and it's his longest as well. It's a little over 2 hours, so it's kind of feature film length. So I think we just will talk about that one, and Brendan, I don't remember.
I'm going to watch all 5 as well, and I've heard Lover's Rock is up there with one of the better ones, so we'll see which one.
Yeah.
What else we talk about, but it'll probably be Lover's Rock.
I think Lover's Rock is the second one too, but I mean, I hear you. I was already planning on watching all 5 of them before our next recording. So yeah, I figure if you change it from Lover's Rock or Mangrove to something else, that's totally fine. But yeah, we're gonna watch all 5. I mean, Derek, you don't have to watch all 5. None of us have to watch all 5, but I think like I'm planning on it, and then we'll report on which 2 are the best, and maybe go over the other ones in a little bit of detail. But Steve McQueen he's like one of the best directors working today too, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
He's only done extremely emotional, powerful movies. So
Yep.
it's crazy that there's 5 new Steve McQueen movies just on Amazon Prime right now. Like, what's going on? And they all, if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, they're all like incredibly acclaimed. So we have to cover
long
that.
ago he came out with a feature film too. 2 years
Yeah.
ago.
Widows.
It was Widows.
So he
Widows
made these
came
in
out
the
like
last
2
2
years ago.
years.
Yeah.
So
I think it was
5
Widows,
movies.
and then before that was 12 Years a Slave.
Yep. So anyway, with that, I think that we should wrap up. So again, we will watch these 4 to 7 movies, and we will cover them probably in January. That'll be our January episode. But
Yeah, might be early January, maybe.
yeah, I'm thinking hopefully we can put one out in early January. So this has been the Monthly Movie Dispatch. Thanks for listening, and keep watching.
See ya.
Bye.